thank you all for hanging around. I know it wasn't for me, it was for the food, but that's coming, so you got to endure a little bit. You'll notice on the dates, not quite 250 years. Next year, this time, we'll celebrate the 250th anniversary of our country, the point at which we declared independence. But I hope you all realize 250 years ago, we were already into the Revolution. Paul Revere had already made his ride 250 years ago. We'd had the battles of Lexington and Concord, the Battle of Bunker Hill. It's already in the past. So we're already in revolution. Next year, I hope we'll do this again. Where's Diane? If I get invited back, we'll do this again next year. And we'll be able to celebrate the 250th. Now, as I look around, I'm sure many of you are like me and Claire. You remember the 200th anniversary in 1976. Anybody who doesn't remember that? Was that a bad year? Weren't there yet? Okay. So it's kind of amazing to realize that we are getting so old that it's been a half century and we remember the 200th anniversary. But we're going to go forward. Now, I'm going to do as I've done in the past. And those of you who know me know I'm a storyteller. I like to tell stories. In fact, my second CD was called Storyteller. And I realized that behind many songs, there are stories. And many times those stories relate to a single event or an event that took place over a very short period of time. And somebody just happened to be there, perhaps the grace of God, that they were able to capture the emotion, the feelings of that particular moment. At least 3 of the songs that we're going to do today, the songwriter, the author of the song, said that the words just flowed onto the page. So that doesn't happen without some sort of superior inspiration. And we're going to go through, and I hope I can capture some of those feelings that go with the song. Too often we sing songs. This first one we're going to do is one that you've all sung thousands of times. All right? And the words just flow out of your mouth. But you don't stop to think about where did those words come from and what do they really mean? And the first song, I want you to close your eyes and imagine that you're standing on the deck of a wooden ship. The date is September 14th, 1814. And you're standing on a ship. It's an American ship. It's called a truce ship. It's not a warship. It's there as a peaceful entity. And before you is a fleet of British warships. They are bombarding a distant castle, a distant fort. They've been doing this for 25 hours. Just before dawn, the day before, it was drizzling rain. And they started bombarding this fort with rocket fire and with mortars. Now, the mortar of the time was a metal ball that was filled with gunpowder. And just before it was launched, a fuse would be lit so that it would go overhead, and as it's coming down over the target, it would explode and generate shrapnel. This is an anti-personnel device. The idea was to kill people on the ground, kill or maim people on the ground. Now, how did we get here? It's only been 38 years since we declared our independence. 38 years. And only 33 years since we actually existed as an independent country. That was at the Battle of Yorktown, where George Washington defeated Cornwallis, and the Revolutionary War was over, and our independence was won. But that was against the British then. As you're sitting there with your eyes closed, we're at war with the British again. 2 years ago, we declared war with Great Britain. But the war isn't going well. About 3 weeks ago, the British marched into our capital. They burned down the Capitol building, they burned down the Treasury and a number of other federal buildings, and they burned down the President's house. That's what it was called back then. After it was rebuilt, we call it the White House. And the war was going poorly. When you lose your capital, very often that's the end of the war. But we weren't done yet. But the British had another target. They wanted Baltimore. They wanted the city of Baltimore. And the harbor lies just beyond the fort. Fort McHenry was the name of the fort. Now the British ships were laying back just outside range of the cannon of the fort. And they bombarded day and night. Now, you're not standing there alone. You have two gentlemen standing there with you. One is a Washington lawyer named Francis Scott Key. And the other is a Dr. William Beams. Now, Dr. Beams lived up in Maryland, and the British were around the area up there, and some stragglers were ransacking the homes up there. Well, a number of citizens really didn't like that, so they captured some of these straggling soldiers and held them. When the British came through, of course, they took charge of their soldiers, but they arrested Dr. Beam for confining British soldiers. He was taken to the commander, the command ship in the British fleet. Mr. Key, our lawyer friend, went and pled his case with the commander and said the man really didn't hurt anybody, he didn't injure these soldiers, and he had kind of a right to protect from the ransacking soldiers. And he won the case. And so Francis Scott Key and Dr. William Beams were released, but they could not go back ashore. They'd been out in the British fleet. They knew what was coming. So they were put aboard this truce ship. And they stand there with you. Now, off in the distance, you can just barely see the fort because the sun is rising behind you. And as the sun comes up, you're about 8 miles away from that fort. You can see a flag. Now, how can you see a flag from 8 miles away? Well, this was a particularly big flag. The commander of the fort, a George Armstead, had gone to his superiors the year before, and he said, I need a flag, a big garrison flag to fly over the fort. It has to be so big that the British can see it from a distance. And so he hired a professional flag maker, Mary Young Pickersgill, and she put together a team, and they put together a flag. Now this flag is 30 feet tall and 42 feet wide. If you want to think in terms of football, that's 10 yards. You remember standing in the goal line, 10 yards down? That's how tall this flag was, and it was 12 yards wide. So it was big enough to be seen from a distance. This flag was so big, Pickersgill started in her own studio, but she had to move to a brewery to have enough space that they could make this flag. It had over 300 yards of British wool bunting for material. The stars were made of cotton, 2 feet in diameter. That's how big the stars were on this flag. The flag was visible as the sun rose. And Francis Scott Key was so inspired by this sight that he wrote a poem. The poem was originally called, let's see, Defense of Fort McHenry. Later, it was renamed, everybody knows the name, what is it? The Star Spangled Banner. All right. It later, 117 years later, became our national anthem. It wasn't until 1931 that we adopted this as our national anthem. Now, that was a flag that saw its inspiration in war. Over my shoulder here, this is a flag that flew in another war. That flag flew over my father's ship in World War II. And somehow I was graced to receive it through the family ties. And as we sing this song, I want you to think about the words. Remember the story I just told you and how all the pieces fit into this expression of passion from Francis Scott Key. If you'd like to stand for this, it would be traditional to stand for the national anthem. You don't have to, if you're more comfortable. Oh, say, can you see by dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at twilight's last gleam, those broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bomb bursting in air, gave proof in the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Thank you. While we're talking about flags, our next song was written by George M. Cohan. It was written in 1906 for a staged musical that he was composing called George Washington Jr. Now, as part of that play, he relates the story that gave him the inspiration for this song. Turns out, he found himself sitting on a bench next to a Civil War veteran, a Union soldier, former Union soldier, who had fought at Gettysburg. And they found themselves next to each other, and George is looking down at the guy's lap, and he's got this old, ragged, tattered flag neatly folded on his lap. The man turned to George and noticed that he was looking at his flag, and he says, "She's a grand old rag." And Cohen thought that was a great idea for a tune. So when he originally wrote it, it was called the Grand Old Rag. Well, as you can imagine, veterans and many others objected to that reflection of our flag as a rag. So he rewrote it, or changed that line, and made it, it's a grand old flag. But it's a grand old flag, but a well-worn rag. Well, that didn't really solve everybody's anxiety over the reference to the flag. And it ultimately ended up, as we know it, and as we're about to sing it, you're a grand old flag. You're a grand old flag, you're a high-flying flag, and forever in peace may it wave. You're the emblem of the land I love, the home of the free and the brave. Every heart beats through under red, white, or blue, where there's never a post or pray. Acquaintance be forgot, keep your eye on that grand old flag. Yes, keep your eye on that grand old flag. Inspiration. When your enemy has a tune that they revere, as the British revered their British monarchy and the royal anthem, God praise the King, or the Queen as the times may be. Well, Samuel Francis Smith thought, hey, I'm going to stick it in their face, and I'm going to write some new lyrics for that song. And he came up with, first played in public on July 4th of 1831, 100 years before the national anthem was selected, but he decided to call his song America. So we're going to kind of stick it to the British now and honor America. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. Our fathers, God, to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God our King. Take that, King George. All right. This is a song that we often think came about during the Revolution, and it's the way the British disdained on our ragtag American army. But actually, this song was written in 1755 during the French and Indian War. And it was written at Fort Krilo by the Army surgeon Richard Shuckburgh. Big, honest British name. And he wrote it to mock the American army. And you can imagine, the British had the supreme army in the world. They marched, their uniforms were spotless, well creased, everything had to be perfect. The American soldiers, well, they were a little less disciplined and a little less prim and proper. Now, there's one thing in this song nobody understands. Do any of you know what the reference to macaroni is? It's not talking about spaghetti pasta. Macaroni was a term that the British used for someone who was dressed and spoke outlandishly arrogant. They'd have a white powdered wig. They'd go around with their chest puffed out. And the song says, these colonials, they think that if you stick a feather in your hat, you can call yourself macaroni. By the end of the Revolutionary War in 1781, the Americans had adopted this and mocked the British by singing this song back at them. The song is called Yankee Doodle. Yankee Doodle went to town, riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his hat, and called it macaroni. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle daddy. Find the music and the step, and let the girls be handy. They're not saying the words. Father and I went down to camp along with Captain Gooding, and there we saw the Brennan boys make this tasty pudding. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle daddy. Mind the music that was step, and with the girls be handy. All right. I'm going to do a song that can get very emotional. You've all heard the forerunner of this song, John Brown's body lies a moldering in the grave. It turns out that the tune for that was not created at that time. It was an older tune that they'd come up with these new lyrics for. And it was about the efforts of an abolitionist, a freed slave or an escaped slave named John Brown. And between October 16th and 18th of 1859, he instituted a raid on the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry. That raid was actually funded and supported by a secret six wealthy Americans who didn't believe in slavery and were willing to put their reputations and their money on the line. Of course, the federal troops came in under Colonel Robert E. Lee, put down the uprising, took John Brown and others prisoner, tried, and they hanged him. The song caught on. One of that secret six was a, what was his first name? Samuel Howe. Samuel Howe. Well, I'm not going to remember his name, but his wife was Julia Ward Howe. And She happened to be sitting in a review of the troops in November of 1861, and somebody in the troops started singing this song. And then many others joined in, and the song actually was catching on. Well, she probably knew of it at the time, but she was sitting next to a James Freeman Clark, a pastor, Reverend Clark. And he said, "That's a neat tune, but it needs some different words." Well, she went back to her room at the hotel, and I want to read her own account of how she was inspired. She said, "I went to bed that night as usual and slept, according to my wont, quite soundly. I awoke in the gray of the morning twilight, and as I lay waiting for the dawn, the long lines of the desired poem began to twine themselves in my mind. Having thought out all the stanzas, I said to myself, I must get up and write these verses down, lest I fall asleep again and I forget them. So with a sudden effort, I sprang out of bed. I found in the dimness an old stump of a pencil, which I remembered to have used the day before, and I scrawled the verses almost without looking at the paper. What she wrote: "Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He swift the lightning of his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. He has sounded for the trumpet that shall never sound retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, be swift, my soul, to answer him, be jubilant, my feet, for our God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. The beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea with the glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us live to make men free. Oh, God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Thank you. Next song we're going to sing, I'm sure you all know, was originally written by Irving Berlin in 1918 while he was serving in the Army Corps at Camp Upton, New York. But really nothing came of it then. But in 1938, as Hitler and his Wehrmacht were growing in Germany and starting to expand, Berlin, who was a Jew and a first-generation immigrant, He revised the song as what he called a peace song. The song was first sung by Kate Smith on her radio show on Armistice Day. You all know what we call that today. Well, at least last year was Veterans Day. We'll see what's called this year. In 1938, and it became Kate Smith's signature song. Berlin gave all the royalties from this song, and they were considerable, to the Boy Scouts of America and the Girl Scouts of America. The song is God Bless America. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. Now, as great as that song was, not everybody loved it. There was an itinerant songwriter, folk singer, named Woody Guthrie, and it really got under his nerve, under his skin, raised that raw nerve to keep hearing that song sung all the time. So, in his inimitable way, he decided he is going to write his answer to it. Now, he originally called his song, God Blessed America for Me. All right? Later, it became This Land Is Your Land. The tune, as Woody Guthrie seemed to do, was from the Carter family and an old folk song, but he added his own lyrics, and we sing it like this. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Causeway waters. This land was made for you and me, as I was walking that little highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the coasting waters. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts. And all around me, a voice was sounding, saying, this land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Causeway waters. This land was made for you and me. Who's it made for? This land was made for you and me. Who is that? This land was made for you and me. If we go from the East Coast to to the Rockies or all the way out to the West Coast. You hop on an airplane, you might look out the window if you're next to one, and you just fly over it all. But think about what happened in 1893. There was a teacher at Wellesley College, that's near Boston. Her name was Catherine Lee Bates. And she was invited to teach a course in Colorado Springs. Now in 1893, it wasn't like it is today. You actually got to see the country. And what she saw on that trip inspired her to write a poem. Now, as a poem, it's beautiful enough, but there was a church organist. We got one of them, don't we? Is Bonnie here? No? All right. Church organist and choir master Samuel A. Ward added music to her poem, music that he had written in 1882 as "O Mother, Dear Jerusalem." Today, and first published in 1910, as "America the Beautiful." Oh, good. Ah, we got a master there. Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, forever waves of green, for purple mountain majesties of the fruit and grain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for patriots' dreams and seas beyond the years, thine alabaster cities green, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea, from sea to shining sea.
Pause and we'll have our.
We're getting near the end. We're getting near the end.
Oh, you're at the end? Okay.
We're getting near the end. Going to take a moment to recognize the veterans. Everybody who's a veteran, raise your hand. We have veterans. We have veterans. Spouses of veterans. You serve too.
Family members.
All right. I'm going to do my
And other family members too.
and other family members. Yes. Uncles and brothers and all sorts of family members. I'm going to do a medley of songs, and if you would like, when it comes to the service that you've been associated with, and you may have to do this several times, please stand and sing for your service. Okay? We're going to start out, and we're going to roll through these pretty quick. Journey! Over hill and over hill as we hit the dusty trail, and the Caissons go rolling along. In and out, hear them shout, countermarch and turn about, and the Caissons go rolling along. Then it's high, high, in the field of artillery. Sometimes I have trouble getting through this one. This is a song, one of those songs that was inspired by a particular event. Does anybody remember Korean Airlines Flight 007? Nobody remembers that. Well, such is history. Korean Airlines Flight 007 was on September 1st of 1983. It was a 747 passenger jet flying from New York City to Seoul, Korea, with a stopover in Anchorage, Alaska for refueling. After it left Anchorage, there was a really bad navigational error. And the plane was flying well north of its desired route. And it found itself flying through Russian airspace. Russians caught an unknown aircraft, not supposed to be there, on their radar and sent up interceptors. Now, you all know what a 747 looks like. It's a huge plane, and at night or in the evening, it has 2 rows of lights, the upper deck and the main deck. Very easily identified. The Russians came up, and they gave, from what I understand, some indication that they realized this was not a military spy plane. This was a commercial aircraft. But they were given the order to go ahead and shoot it down. And they did. And 246 passengers, including a United States representative, and 23 crew members were killed. Now, you don't remember it now, but back then it did hit a lot of people. And one of the people who was deeply affected by this was a singer-songwriter, country singer, Lee Greenwood. And, excuse me. He was on a tour at the time. He went to his producer, said, "I've got a song. I've got to record it." Now, he was, I don't know, what they say, the 4th or 5th album for MCA, and they went ahead and gave him permission. So he wrote, the song more or less wrote itself, that the lyrics flowed naturally from the music as a reflection of his pride to be an American. Now, interestingly enough, this is the early 1980s. In 1963, another pop singer that you may recognize the name of had this as one of the song tracks on his album called The Star-Spangled Banner. And that pop singer was Pat Boone. So the song line is, I'm proud to be an American. Whether this had any influence on Lee Greenwood or not, I don't know. But it's interesting that there was a similarity there. So I'm going to wrap this up. And I hope you'll join in with me. If tomorrow all the things were gone I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife, I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you, defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, there's pride in every American heart. It's time we stand and say, I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you, defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Thank you, one and all. It's an honor to be asked to come up here and share my music and my history of this music with you. So thank you very much.
Yes, that's all for it. It was wonderful. Great job, Tom. Thank you so much.